Hi, good afternoon everybody. It's George Alderete here. Welcome to my home here in Atlanta. I'm not at the Academy today, so we're going to be doing our Facebook Live here. Jessica Mills will be joining me in just a minute. She's here on too, so she'll be fielding any questions that you might have. We're going to be talking a little bit about a couple of things that I love to talk about, and one of them is really about timing in the salon. I know that some of you, when you jump on, are going to be asking me about timing and how are you mixing this product with that product, or using them on the same client at the same time, and how do you time for that? The other important question that I know everybody will always ask is, how do I retouch that? So I want you to refrain from holding on to that, and I want you to really think about that. And think about the clients that are coming in that haven't been visiting you for a while, and how are you really going to go in and approach that color? I think if we go into every single color, no matter how many times they visit us, is that if we can always look at it as a new color. And if we do that, we can just rethink a little bit, we don't get into a rut, and then what starts to happen for me is I start to get a little creative. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the formulation and how I work sometimes when I'm doing that retouch as well. Just please remind me, because sometimes I get a little bit off track and I get lost depending on the questions that are being fielded. So the greatest thing that I want to talk about today is color chameleon and semi-color. Semi-color is our demi-permanent color in Tinta, which is our permanent line. And when you see our semi and you look at our tint book, what you're going to notice is that anything on the book, and I'll bring it a little bit more forward so you guys can see it. And if you have a good shot of that, just let me know, Bill, if that's okay. Bill Storkin, my partner's always here helping me out too. So what I'd like to show you is, if you look at all of the colors and you can see them, if you can like scope in a little bit and you can see exactly where they are, you're going to notice that there's a little square, and that's going to be for Tinta, and then there's a square and a circle, and that's going to be a combination of your Tinta and your semi. So you'll see that, it'll be marked on your chart, you'll always know, and that's going to be our permanent and our demi-permanent line. What I love about semi is that you can use it right directly after you do your highlights. After you do your highlights, you can do that, and you can use it on damp hair, which is really nice. And if you're doing low lights, what you can do is you can always just moisten the hair a little bit and put in your low light. Now, if you feel like that might be a little bit too much time, what I tend to do is I will buffer my tonality by just adding a little bit of clear to it, so that as I pull it through, we always understand that when you're pulling color through the ends, the porosity is going to change. And when that porosity changes, especially if you've been doing highlight over highlight, it might absorb the base just a little bit more. So I buffer it with a little bit of clear. And I might even split that formula. So I might have a fresh formula for her base, and then as I pull through on my low light, I will go in and buffer that with clear. Now the ratio is entirely up to you, depending on what you're doing. Blondes always tend to think that they're too dark when you do a low light, so don't forget that. And I always tend to go a little bit lighter and softer anyway with those blondes, just because they sometimes think that a 9 or a 10 in low light is black. So I like to really look at that and think about, maybe I should just buffer it a little bit and maybe make it a little softer and lighter. This way it just kind of refreshes it. And the other thing about that too is it saves you as you're working through the hair, because we know that we can't always pick up the same identical hair. So that'll help me to go through and just kind of give me a little bit more tone and refreshness to the hair. So I'm going to be working on Emma Light, which is one of my favorite mannequins to work with by Hair Art. It's really beautiful to work with, and we work with them at the Academy. And if you haven't seen us at the Academy, which I'm sure will be opening soon, I hope everybody's out there safe and sound. I hear some things are being rolled back, some things are opening. I just heard California salons are staying opening too. All my friends out there, good luck with everything. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about, have you ever mixed a color, or you saw a formula? And I'll tell you this example only because I experienced it this weekend. I saw a great formula that I really loved, and I really wanted to use it, so I thought I'd take it. I asked her what her formula was, and I tried it. Now, I don't know if my ratio was wrong or if maybe the photograph was a little bit different, but I tried it. And the reason why I'm asking you to do this is swatching for me is a really great discovery tool. So for me, what I wanted to do is I wanted to see if I could use that beautiful color in the variation that I'm working with. Obviously, when I did it, it was really intense. It was too intense to match this beautiful summer whimsical pink, soft pink, dusty pink, rosy pink that I wanted to create. And you can see that if I would have used this color in the variations, it would have been just a little bit too strong. So I decided to go ahead and to eliminate this pink, take that out, and then I started to play with other formulas. So the other formulas that I wanted to play with too, if you can see, I'll take this clip out, you can see that the waves really show it off. Also, it kind of reminded me with the base color, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. The base color for me was, what inspired me was, I don't know if any of you ever eaten a Neapolitan sandwich, ice cream sandwich. And you have the chocolate on the outside, you have the strawberry, the vanilla, and the chocolate on the inside. And that kind of reminded me what I wanted to create, like walking through the park, eating a sandwich. And I thought, I would love to try to create that like Neapolitan summer pink. So what we did on the base is we used our semi-color, 6.38. And before we did that, I want to share with you what I did first. We swatched everything out to make sure that we had the right combination of colors. So by swatching this out, this helped me. So for me, this was a 437, and I felt like it was just too dark. And remember, I wanted to stay in the semi-color line. I felt like it was too dark against everything, too much contrast, and to me it was just too much. Now here's another formula that I tried. I tried 20 parts of rose with 10 parts of yellow. And what I thought was going to be more of a nude rose ended up being more of a russet or even a burnt orange. So try the combinations with Color Chameleon. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. And it's all about the discovery on this road trip with direct eyes. So it's really cool and fun to play with. So we decided not to go with that. Then I thought from the 4, I'll go with the 5 and see if maybe we can go just a little bit lighter. And I thought, okay, this was a little bit better, but I also felt like it was just a little bit too much on the plum side against the rose. So I nixed that one out. And then I went up to, let's see, this was another 5.35. Again, a little bit too deep. And then I decided to use one of my very old favorites, 638. And for those of you that have never used our 3/8 series in semi-color, it's one of my favorites to go to because it's well balanced, it's well rounded, it's a beautiful tone, you're going to see it, and I'll explain it to you. So it's a level 6, okay? And then it's a 0.38. So 0.38 means that it's a gold, 3 is gold in our line, and 8 is another brown. But this brown is more rounded out and balanced. It's not on the cool side, it's not really on the warm side, it's more on the very natural side, but it's perfect for gray coverage in a semi or in tinta. So we have it in both our permanent line and our demi-permanent line. What I love about it is I have a perfect warmth. Now the reason why I was really looking for the combinations, if you've noticed, the wefts that I'm playing with are all really high at a level 10. So you can see the reason why I wanted to fill out my formula was because I didn't want to fill the hair first. I wanted to work with a color formulation that I knew would round out my color, give me the undertone that I really needed, and that's really important when you're coloring back light hair, especially blonde highlights. So I wanted to round out my color, and I wanted something with a little bit of an undertone. So the 6 with a little bit of gold, which was my secondary, and then my primary, and then my secondary was an 8, which was brown. So I had brown, gold, brown. So my combination was 50% of the base, 30% of the gold, and 20% more of brown, and 20% and 50 gives me 70% of a background color, which is really beautiful to work with, especially when you want to do low lighting. Now, if you want to take that 6 in a semi and you want to soften that up, you can always soften that up with clear. And a good ratio to use with your clear is equal parts, and that'll give you one level of lift visually, so make it a 7. So that's always a good way to play with semi-colors. So that was the first color that we used. That's the base color that you're going to see in this combination that you can see right here. And I wanted to shadow that in, so that was my first application all the way through. And you can see that it just gave me a beautiful play of color and a little bit of depth. And then I wanted to pull that through at the same time while I was toning and coloring the rest of that wig. So I want to just show you how beautiful that color looks and how rich it looks. It gives me a nice variations of tones. And the funny thing is about it, and we'll talk about that in just a minute, is that everything was horizontally placed. So if you look up at the head sheets, we had the back area that I split into 2, and then the 2 sides, so that's 4 sections. Again, the back area, that's 2 sections. The sides, 2 more sections, left and right, so that's a combination of 4. And then on the very top, what I did was I over-directed everything away from the face. The reason why I did that when I was touching it up, as you're gradually moving up the side of the head, and let me get my comb, as I'm moving up, let me move this pin here, as you're moving all the way up, and I'm touching it up, you can see that the graduation of the color in the application is going to continue. So it's going to go small, then higher, because it's following the natural curvature of the head shape. So you're going to get a nice shadow as you're moving forward, and so it's going to look like a hill. So when you get to that high point, you're going to be lower, 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 higher, 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 and that's going to allow you to get that little bit of a bridge or a gap in there. That's a curvature that you see as you're working towards the front, over-directing to the back. The next thing that we're going to do is by over-directing, it's going to help to give you a really nice, beautiful blend on the very front hairline, which is always something that they're wanting to look for. They want it a little more lived in. That's the way we're going right now. So I decided to shadow that in by over-directing it and combing it through. I used my little tool here, so at the very top, and I'll share this with you visually so you can see the application. I take it, I brush it in, and then I comb it through just a little bit and lift out in a really nice C-section. A nice C-sectioning out so that it will lift the color and then drag it out as we're working on the mannequin. And you can see the drag that you get here. So apply my color, work it in with my comb, pull it out towards me, and that gives me a nice diffusion of the color and a beautiful blend when I do my other application horizontally with my color application. So please feel free to ask any questions throughout the demonstration. And if it pertains to lightning, if it pertains to anything else that you can think of, what type of lightener to use. And if I could get Bill, you to give me another brush, a color application brush, that would be great. And I'm just going to lower her a little bit so you can see that combination. This is perfect. And I've already got my colors mixed.
It's gorgeous, George.
Thank you. I hope it's pink enough because we really adjusted the lighting in here to show it. It was looking kind of tan. So I hope that you like it. And now remember, this is a level 10. She was already pre-lighted. If you go and you're buying wefts, if you're purchasing wefts, you want to ask for 613. And a 613 will look about just like this. 613 is really white. It's really good to work with, especially if you want to find out tones and bases. I love to work with these when I really am not sure what the base of a color is that I've never used, or that I'm playing with, or someone sent me and they want me to try it, and that gives me an idea of what the base will look like because of the pure white hair that I'm working with. Plus, this is ideal for direct dyes to work with, and it helps you to really gauge. So here is what the pink would look like on a white swatch, that level 10. This is what the rose looks like completely on its own, okay? And then what we did was I wanted to see how the soft pink would work in semi-color because I felt like it was really pretty and soft, but that's the color combination that really makes everything else pop. So that's my intermediate color that I use it in a bigger section, in a subsection, and I'm going to show you how we did that in just a second. So that's going to be my semi-color soft pink. You can see it right here. It's really soft and beautiful. It's 1 part of color to 2 parts of the activator. Now we have 2 activators. We have a red activator, which I love to use, especially when I'm thinking of maybe just a little bit of coloring the hair, not covering, but coloring the hair, so I can get just a nice, beautiful blend in between my foil packets if she's got a small percentage of gray. Then I really like to use semi, especially if she doesn't want to commit to a permanent tint. So this is going to be semi, it's 1 part to 2 parts of developer. The red activator is 2%, and the activator is 1.5%. Direct deposit only. So that's a beautiful tool to use with, and I love that a little goes a long way. The other color in semi that we worked with was 638, which you can see right here. I'm using a little bit of a wider brush so that I can get my touch-up just where I want it, and I can work faster because it gives me more width to work with when I'm working with the touch-up. Now, if you have level 10 hair and sometimes it sticks to the brush, use a smaller brush to have a little bit more control, and that's the other brush that I showed you right here that I like to use, because then I can always touch it and then diffuse it through, touch it and then diffuse it through just a little bit, and that'll give you a really nice soft blend as well. Alright, so that's going to be 638 in semi, and our formulation was 1 part of color to 2 parts of an activator. An activator was perfect for that choice. Let's see, I have a note here. Please share with your friends. Oh, share with your friends. Oh, yeah. So if you really like what you're seeing, Bill's just telling me to please share the video with your friends and let them know on Facebook that we're here live so they can come and join us. So that would be great. The more the merrier. I really appreciate it. And so I was talking about the highlighting and smudging that through, so, and working that in. So that's really important, and that's key to what we're working with as far as that color choice. Now, the other color choices that I'm using are rose, and if you could hand me the rose, Bill, please, over there in the box, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. I love having somebody here. So this is Color Chameleon Rose. You can see it's really beautiful. I'll show you what it looks like when it comes out of the tube. And they are direct. There's no mixing. There's a 20-minute process. And I think your surprise is going to be that when you rinse them, there is absolutely no bleeding at all. So I just want to show you on the cellophane what it will look like. Pure tone. I'm going to be using these. So this is the rose. This is what it's going to come out like. So it's really beautiful. I'm going to put that over here. And then you can see it on the cellophane how deep and smoky it already is. So it's beautiful to play with. The combinations that I worked with were at the first sectioning. If you look back here, I did a head sheet for everybody. So the first section we're going to smudge in the 638. Then we're going to take this and you're going to horizontally create that line. And I'm going to show you that in a second. And that's going to be my rose pure tone. The second one is going to be rose 10 parts of the rose in our color chameleon with 5 parts of the clear. Now the clear, when you look at it, it's in a a 9-ounce tube. If you might hand me the clear, please, I'll show it to them. Thank you. So this is the clear, and we also have a dark, and those are your shade shifters. And what I love about the shade shifters, that it allows me to either smoke it out or to soften it up and pastel it out. So that's perfect. The other thing about our dark is that it's not black. It's a really beautiful charcoal gray. It's not really a dark black at all. So you have a little bit more softness and control to the smokiness of the tone. Also remember, please write this down if you're taking any notes today, or just mentally put it in there. What I'd like you to remember is that the darker will always dominate in combination. So what do I mean by that? So what that means is, if you feel like you want to add a lot more dark and then you add your color, it's going to overtake that color and deepen it quite a bit. Let me give you a quick example visually on our chart, because our chart really says it all. So I love this chart that you're going to get in your kit, and you can tell this goes everywhere with me. It's got color on it. It's like the one in the back room. I would recommend laminating it first. But just to show you, when you look at the chart, you're going to see what the color will look like with a 1-to-1 ratio, one part of the color chameleon to one part of the dark. Straight across, you can see how almost brown or dark they are. So it really does control that color chameleon and really brings it down into a more natural shade. So you can create some beautiful shades. The combinations are endless. Let me tell you, I've been playing with them and it's just incredible. The next one going up is 5 parts of the color with 1 part of the dark. You can see the difference in the shade. And as you move up, this is the pure color straight across. And then always remember that the first number is going to be the color, and the second number is going to be the dark or the light or the clear. So over here is a 1 to 5, so 1 part's color to 5 parts of clear, 1 part of color to 10 parts of clear, and 1 part of color to 20 parts of clear. And you can see how the colors have each shifted from dark all the way up to the most clear. So that gives you a lot to play with, and the combinations that you can play with are really pretty. So I love experimenting with them, and you're not going to know it until you play with them, but sometimes you'll have a new discovery or something you never even thought you could create. So I've had that experience, and that's been a lot of fun too. So swatches, I would definitely recommend trying it out, testing it, and testing out your formulas. You want me to put this one on instead? I'll be right back. I'm going to do a quick wardrobe change.
It's more chameleon.
All right, how's that? That's my color chameleon hat. There you go. Is that okay, Bill? All right. So, he's crazy. He's crazy bossy, but gotta love him.
Hey, George.
Yes.
Can you describe the texture and the fragrance of the chameleon?
Yeah, I really, I was trying to figure out the fragrance yesterday because I kept playing with it. I kept smelling it every time I was around it. What is it exactly? Because I'm not sure.
I don't know if it has a signature fragrance, but I think it smells different to everyone, just like
It smells like fresh cut bouquet of flowers. Like it's not lilacs, it's not roses, it's just got a, Bill, stay out of it. There you go. He wants to smell it.
Yeah, it smells
Debbie
like,
says it smells like sandalwood.
yeah,
It's
it
just-
smells like sandalwood.
It just smells clean and a little bit, would you say sandalwood? Yeah, a little bit. So this is going to be...
It smells like heaven.
It does. And when you look at it in the combination, you can see the texture is really kind of like pudding. And it really works really well with that consistency. What I will say is what I'd like you to do when you're working with it is that when you're applying it, where you apply it, it's going to stick first. So you really have to work it in order to get a really great blend, which is good. And the other thing too is where you put it. If you rinse it and you leave it and you didn't saturate it, you're going to have a little bit of a bend of non-colored hair. So just remember that. What I do is I work it in. I do a little vertical brush and then I crisscross. Work it in, a little vertical, and then a crisscross. And that'll always help me to get the saturation. Especially there's a couple ways that I like to do blends. I like to work with my hands, but then you have to wipe off your hands with your gloves and then apply the next color. And what happens is that sometimes that takes a little extra time and it becomes a little bit repetition. So I like to just go with it on foil, control it, work it through, and then cover it with the cellophane. So I'm going to start getting into my technique. That was a great question, the fragrance and the texture. I love the texture, I love working with it. It is completely different. So think of semi-color, more of a wet pudding. So this pudding is a little bit more wet. And this looks a little bit, I'm sorry, I'm getting directions still, I'm talking. Hang on. Move that way and move this one up here. Is that good? Forward? Okay, good. So this is more a little bit creamier. So semi is a little bit creamier and it really gives a really good pull when you're applying it on the damp hair in the back bar or at your station. So those are the consistencies that you're going to see. The first color choice that we're going to use today is our semi-color 6/3/8. Can you see it there? Is that better, guys? Can you see? All right, good. So it's going to be the 6/3/8. I'm going to work it through on the base. I'm going to work through the sides first so that you can see this. I'm going to work with the top last because the last part about this is that I want to make sure that I over-direct that sectioning as I'm working to the back. A good guideline that I like to work with, whenever you're using the head shape or the head face, the face of the head of the person, what I like to do is I like to use their features to help me to measure it out. So for instance, if I'm going to work with the diagonal line off the cheekbone, it's going to get me to right about above the ear. So that's one. Now right in through here is the parietal ridge. So if I want to go above the parietal ridge, this area right here is called the danger area for me. Only because if I'm laying foil in that area, in that vicinity of the parietal, the color will lay flat against the head if I'm working from underneath the high point, which is going to be my brow. And I'm going to show you where that is. That's right here. We're going to work that back. You're going to pull that out. This area that I'm sharing with you right here is the area that I tend to have issues with when I'm coloring or highlighting. And this is this area of the parietal ridge right in through here. As I start to move up the curvature, I get a little bit more bend or play or what I call forgiveness in my application. So that's really important. So cheekbone, above the ear, brow bone, parietal ridge above, jawline, back to the nape. So these are three great measuring points that I love to use off the face. And your application is always going to be balanced, especially around the front area where they want to see the beautiful, beautiful money piece that you want to create, or they want to see a little bit more brightness. That will help you to always measure it. So that means I would work with this area, and the front area if I wanted to over-direct to the back in order to get a really beautiful drag of color into the variations that I'm creating. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start from below. I'm going to do my base color first. Ideally what I did over here is I worked with my base color all the way through. And by working with my base color, I had more time to go through and I had all my other colors set up and then I went. The reason why that's important is because if you don't have a base color, you don't have something to drag with. So let me give you a perfect example. I've been working on some wigs, I've been posting some stories. And her request to me was she wanted the natural level of the hair to be a part of the combination of the colors. So she wanted them also honey blonde, caramel, toffee, and she's about my complexion. So I could understand that. Now this has been via Skype through the phone, having this consultation, and then she shipped them to me. So now what's happening is I'm looking at them and I have to figure out, okay, how do I implement this level 2, 3 into a level 6, 7, and 8 at sometimes on the warm side. So what I did was instead of using a base color, I used semi-clear. I applied it to the base right here, And that allowed me to give me a little bit of pull and drag to blend into those lighter colors of contrast. And that helped me to get a really soft blend and a shadow with the natural hair that I was using. So that's just a quick tip for you. Use clear. If you always want to use their natural base color to work through, but you want to do a blend, if you use the clear in semi, that'll give you a nice barrier. And if anything bleeds, it protects it from bleeding onto the scalp. So that was another great discovery for me. I hope this is helping today. Jessica, how are we doing over there?
We're doing great. Great comments. Everybody loves the tip.
Oh, good. So here's what we're going to do. You want to have tension. And I worked from the top to the bottom. And somebody was commenting on a post that I did this weekend about gloves. And it was so funny. I usually do wear gloves with a wig. And this demo, I'm not using them. But I usually do. But with wig hair, sometimes it's difficult to feel the texture. So I like to use my bare hands. So that's why if you see this color on my fingers, that's what I was doing this past weekend. So I've got about 10 of them to do. I'm 6 down and 4 more to go. So I have a lot of wigs that are level 2 that she wants variations of blonding in them. Always, that's the request from every client. They always want to be warmer, blonder, lighter. But at the same time, I think today people are wanting to keep their base color to save money. So it's a great tip to use that semi-light clear. And you know what, to charge appropriately, I've been thinking about this, we've been talking about it. For something like this, I would do it by the hour. Definitely, think of a roundabout number, break up your price points and your product included to do what you're going to be doing with your price point. And different markets allow different things to happen. But quite honestly, I find when you can charge by the hour, it really does help, because this took me to do, and it was a fresh wig, level 10, no color at all, section by section, 3 hours. So if you think that it's fast and easy, no. And we know that right now we can't book that many people in the salon for those of us that are open. So sometimes we have to think of more effective ways of working. So if you have that client that's booked out for the 3 hours time slot until your next one's there, that's a perfect opportunity to take your time, give the best experience possible, and to charge appropriately by the hour for it. So that would be my recommendation on charging.
Hey George,
Yes.
can you repeat the base formula that you're applying right now?
Sure, the base color that I'm using right now is Sunny Color 638. And let me show you over here. I'm going to move over, so if you don't see me in frame, that's okay, because I think this is more important. So when you look at it, you can see the 638. See that? And then how it blends into the pink. So it really has that, like I said, that Neapolitan ice cream sandwich kind of effect with the chocolate on the inside, making it look like it's a sandwich on the outside, and then the colors on the end. So that gives you a beautiful combination to work with. It's just enough warmth, but it's not too much. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. So, and that's in semi, and we also have it in tinta. So if you're interested in using it, it's a beautiful color to work with for great coverage. And it's a beautiful addition to any formula that you have in those ranges to use when you're working with your clientele. So definitely do that. Now, what I did was, I'm going to work on the side because the backs was the most because of the length. But I want to show you on the sides the combination of colors that we use and how we use them. So I'm just combing this through a little bit. That's going to give me some drag. I'm going to wipe my comb. I'm going to take my very first section. It's going to be straight across. And because I'm working in the very front, what is it that they're always asking for?
Sorry to interrupt, George. Can Bill move our beautiful pink friend?
You moved your things for
Oh, sorry. Did I move her too much?
Yeah, she's trying to be a hog.
Oh, she's a little diva, that one. She's kind of quiet, but
You're fine. You're fine.
Can you see now? Is it good?
Yes, it's better.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to turn her up this way. So this is going to be my first section, and in the very front, I think that they always want to see a little bit more light. So I used a roll of foil, and I cut them in that length. Right here, I'm using a box foil, but they're a little bit longer than usual. There we go. And I'm just going to work in and reapply and smudge in a little bit of my 638. Then what I'm going to do is right here, you're going to lay your color. See where I'm laying it? There's a slight space in between that. You want to see that space so that you can do a blend later. And you don't want to work this first color too far down. Let me come through, okay? And then we're going to use, and that's the rose by itself. Then we're going to take my next color, and I'm going to apply it directly horizontally straight across as well. And I'm just kind of lifting it and scooping it, and you're going to hear a little shh, shh. And that's just going to diffuse it onto the end so you could blend it into your last color. And I'm going to work with the softest of the three. And I hope you guys can see that pretty well.
What is the space between each shade that you're...
Okay, I'll tell you why. Because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a dry brush, and now I'm going to work with the dry brush, and I'm going to work and give myself a blend. So you want to leave that gap in there. I'll tell you why. You want to create that melt. So I'll tell you why. If I would have done this and then melted it, I have the bad habit of using the same brush going through, and sometimes I work all the way through the ends. And what happens is I end up pulling that brown all the way through, or the darker shade above the lighter shade through it. So if I take a dry brush at the very end, I know that I can go back now. I can go in, get that really soft blend and saturation, wipe my brush, and then get my brown and work that through to my pure tones. Is that making any sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, so you want to see those lines. It's a reminder I gotta go back, and now I'm going to melt that color in. Even though it is a horizontal placement, straight across, not diagonal, and I always use diagonal placement, it's horizontal because I'm doing that blend. That's what gives you that blend of colors and tones that you see on Emma over here. So you could actually see the blend from darker to light. Very subtle, very, very, very subdued, but just enough to be creative and fun. And she's gonna love it. So it's a play on a little bit of a foliage, but at the same time, it's more of a melt. Completely different. Then I'm just going to isolate it with one of the transparencies. I have two here. One of the transparencies. This will save me time. Now in the very front, I only want to take a small section, a slice directly above that. This is going to be my second color.
So Karen has a question.
Yes, Karen.
Using the above color on the red to blend out.
Okay, you broke up just a little bit. So what was that?
Was you're using the above color on to blend and melt.
I'm using, you broke up a little bit.
Using color of the next color with the brush, correct? Of the color above to the next color.
Yes, I'm taking the color above, right here, this is the best way of showing it. Let me show you. Can you see that? Okay, see the color, the darker color on the very top? And then you see the next color, see the little bit of a space, and then after I'm done with all three applications, I'm going to take a dry brush and I'm going to get directly over that and blend the darker color into the lighter color. But you want to take short sweeps of the tip of your brush. And I'll show you how to do that on the next section. Did that help?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I try to make it as simple as possible. Now, this color is going to be my soft pink. The soft pink is what you see running through it. It's one section above the combination of the melted section, and then I'm going to take my transparency, lock it into that color, protect it. I don't have to use another foil. And that's the other thing I had to think of, with all the weight of the foil, is it going to drag? Because it's all open face. So here's why I'm using an open face foil. What I've discovered in using direct dyes, I can tend to fold too much on a direct dye, and it eliminates the saturation on the fold. When I'm folding a foil, and I'm bending it, and I bend it right here, the color will push away from itself in the application, and it doesn't get saturated. So by using an open face foil, or if for those of you that don't use any foil, you use a board, something that'll help you to get that saturation and drag the color through is really ideal. So that's why I use a foil, and I'm using the slices and then the transparency. I don't want to use another foil, because if I use another foil, it's going to add more weight. So the transparency is very light, plus for me, it keeps me on track to see exactly where I'm working and what I'm using. The other great thing about the transparencies is that if I'm using a lightener, say from mid shaft to ends, I can actually see the color lifting to the tone without having to go through and open the foil and doing the whole peekaboo game. So that's really important too. So you can see it processing as you're working. And that's ideal too in the salon. Now that we've done the soft pink, I'm going to take my section and I'm just going to take a stitch. And I'm going to take a really small stitch, but I'm going to go far apart. So I'm going to do 1, 1, 2, 3, down, 1, 1, 2, 3, down, 1, and drop. Once you drop that, this is going to be my pull through. I'm not using another foil, so I'm saving on time. And I'm just going to pull through the brown, which is the 6 3/8 from the base. So now you're going to have a blend of color. So that's why the contrast also isn't as severe, because of that little bit of brown, that 6 3/8 that's working through there. It's just helping to get more of a blend with everything that's on the top, on the base. So now we're going to work that through. Now my next section is going to be a combination. And I am going to use a foil here for control. This is going to be my next section. I'm going to work in my 6 3/8. I'm grabbing a comb. Brush that in. I'm going to comb that through. And that'll just diffuse that at the base of the line so I don't have a hard line. I'm going to take, here's for you guys that were asking that question, that block of color, that little horizontal, and just work that through. Now, if the length were longer like this is, then I would bring this down a little further, but since it's not, I'm leaving it a little bit smaller to adjust the color variation for the length. So here we go here. Now this is the second color, and I'm just picking up everything underneath in my hand to use as the board. So I'm kind of giving a little bit of pressure as I'm applying, and I'm pulling off just like that. And then I'm going to do pink. And this is going to be 10 parts of clear to 5 parts of pink, and you can see the difference. If I show them all to you, variation, you can see how slight they are in lightness. This is the darkest, this is the next light, this is the third. Can you see that? Okay. And then, what brings it all together is the soft pink and sunny. So now you have a blend, and then your low light afterwards. So those are how we're going to combine those 3, we go. Saturation. Now I'm going to do a dry brush. Dry brush. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to isolate. And there you go. Now the next one is going to be, oh what? Soft pink.
So George,
Yeah.
Karen asked a question earlier. She's new to Kuhn.
Hi Karen, welcome. Welcome to Kuhn.
Yeah. So you used 638, but you used the semi version. Can you explain the developer that you used? She's asking if you used 20 volume, but you used semi.
I did, and I used activator. Okay, so there are two activators. There's one activator that has a silver circle on it. That's going to be your go-to every day. If you want a little bit of a gray blending, I tend to go to the red activator because it's a little bit higher in the percentage. It's 2%, which will allow you to get a little bit deeper penetration of the color and the tone and to color the hair. So if you put the activator in, it gives you a great deposit. It's beautiful, but I like to use that, especially if I have a little bit of pepper and salt sprinkled through it. And I know that I'm doing a dimensional color. I like to paint my semi in between, like say a 932, I'm just throwing a number out there. 932 is a great blend to just color some of that salt that you have left in between your foils and give you a beautiful highlight so that it looks all dimensional. What's also really nice about that kind of opportunity that you're taking with your client is that you're giving her a little bit more longevity in her color so that the gray kind of just comes back little by little by little as she's growing out. So when she comes in for her visit for her dimensional color, she'll always need a refresher in between. So that's another add-on that you can add to your service, which is really important, along with the treatment. So treatments are really, really important. All right, so there's my pink, and I just gotta isolate that. Great questions, by the way, Karen. So excited that you're joining us today. And I hope this helps, because this not only could be used as a direct dye application, it could be done as a highlighted application, depending on the color choices that you use and the level that you're working on, of course, but it's really important. I'm going to go in, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and drop. So you can see how small this section really is, and I'll put a foil underneath it so that you can see of that low light that I'm going to paint through. And I want you to see it. So I put that foil there so you can see it's a very, very separated low light. You want this gap in between so that you can see, and I'll show you right in the very front. See how you can see that? See how it's here and here? So space, 1, 2, 3, space, 1, 2, 3, grab, and that's how you're going to get those beautiful little low lights just softly peeking through. So it's not going to overtake. I think with low light, we tend to utilize a low light. We tend to utilize a low light as a part of our dimension, when we forget that sometimes it needs to be on the inside of your dimensional color, not on the outside of it. And so that makes a huge difference in your low lighting. And I think that's why clients always tell us that our low lights look too strong or too dark. Our hair color looks too dark. So just always think, and if you notice what I did, just always think about it. I took this section out first, I did my stitch, I dropped that out, and then took that away. So now this is going to work and live on the interior of the highlight versus on the top. Back in the day, I used to do this first, this light, and it would always look too dark. So that really helps me to do that placement that way. All right, so now that we're done here, I'm going to start over again. So it's the first application is going to be the one that we're doing here with all three of a combination and the base. So here's my base. Here's my first color. Here's my second color. And I want, as I'm working up to the top of the head, I want that graduation that I'm working with, I want it to be a little higher so I can allow my lighter pieces to be on towards the end. So now this is towards the end here. And sometimes I like to work from the bottom and work up to it. There it is. Now I take my dry brush and I'm going to work in where that little gap is. See that little gap being covered up now? Okay. Wiping my brush. Working that in. And now we're just going to cover that up. I think color combinations are really important when you're working with them to pick the right ones, so that's why I like to swatch out. I also think it's really important to look at what it will happen. So let me give you an example. On some of the browns that I worked with, here's one right here, you could see how it starts to lighten out and warm up. Depending on what I'm going to work with in this second color choice, could alter that color just slightly and change it. So you really want to make sure that you have a good combination and a good blend and a good melt. The melt is really key about that, okay? Then we're going to cover this one up and I'm going to start all over again. I'm going to turn it around so you can see her. I'm going to start on the very top because this area, the sides are finished. I want to show you the sectioning on the top so you can see it. And again, we're going to take my visual aid for me is going to be the brow bone. I'm going to work to that area. Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, and ask and you shall receive, and a clip appears. Okay, so this is going to be my clip.
So George, we have a question.
Yeah.
Did you do any pre-toning to the hair to prep the hair for this process?
That is the most amazing question. I absolutely did not on this one. And believe it or not, as white, and sometimes when you see 613 hair, you see a little tinge of yellow in it. Remember, this is a wig. So this is a 26-inch full lace wig. That if I would have messed up would have been a really horrible mistake. So, and very expensive. So I wanted to make sure that I have a good blend on that. So that's important. So no, I did not tone this because if I would have toned it and tried to eliminate the yellow, that blue would have affected and turned my pink into like a raspberry because it's a blue and a violet. So with that pink, and I've done that, and that's how I did do in a photo shoot, created a raspberry by accident. So I know that for fact. I've also used silver and semi to take any yellow out, and I fill a level, 9, 10 hair before I do my second glaze if I want to keep it really light and platinum. So yes, you can fill it, but I did not in this particular instance. But that's a great question. That's a really good idea, and a lot of people are. Just think about it. If you're already layering a toner in there, what's really cool about it is that you'll have that as your living undertone. So as the color fades, it's not as brassy because now you have that undertone living in there. So that's really important. I'm just going to do a quick outline of this color so you can see it on the sides. Okay.
You have like 7 minutes.
Are you kidding me?
And you did section off.
Oh my God, and I did section off. I'm sorry, I'm talking so much. I'm having so
it's
much.
great. It's great information. And Felicity wanted me to tell you she said hello.
Oh, hey Felicity, how are you? I heard you said great. I'm so glad to hear that you're doing well. So let me just show you this tool that I like to use because I think it's really fun. And it was one of those tools that just sat there in the dispensary. So, you're going to take your semi. I'm going to work it in with my brush. Then I'm going to comb it through, and I'm just doing a half a turn. Okay? Take your brush, smudge your color, do a half a turn. See how it breaks it up? See the lines of color? That works really well for me. I love it. Then I'm going to take my other color choices. See if you can see I didn't get out of frame on that. I'm going to take my very first color and start in the back. It's going to be my Pure Rose in color Chameleon. My second is my Rose, 10 parts with 5 parts of clear. My third rose, 10 parts of clear with 5 parts of rose. So I just flipped it on the other end. I think sometimes when we do combinations that are so difficult, we kind of lose ourselves. So I tried to keep it as simple. I just thought, well, you know what? I want the same tonality, but what if I just flip the combination? So now we're going to do a dry brush here. We're going to work that through. There's the gap. We're going to fill in that gap. And we're going to melt that color all the way through each one. Working, drying off the brush. And then I'm going to work that brown into that pure toned rose. I'm going to flip that through. And that's going to be the application. As I work towards the front, it is going to give me a slight graduation and give me a drag in the front hairline, like you see right here. So let me move the pin, because make sure I want you to see her edges and how pretty her edges are, because edges are important here in Atlanta. And girls out there, you know what I mean. But see the blend? So now it looks like she has a little bit of a root, a little bit of that soft pink, and then working into the lighter pink. I left a little bit of spacing between. I wanted some of that blonde in there, which was okay. And that's what you see coming through here in the bend of the highlight. So you can see it. And that's my blend melted color technique with the Whimsical beautiful summer pink. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you had fun. I had a great time preparing for it and learning and all the self-discovery. I know it's been a difficult time for everybody right now and trying to get motivated. And sometimes it's like, oh, I just want to lay on the couch and on my sweats. Do I have to take a shower today? But yeah, so it's that kind of thing. And for all of you that followed me on my road trip with Bill, thank you guys so much for all the great comments, because it was so much fun and it was much needed and it was safe because we were isolated in this mobile home. I mean, I drove an RV across country. I can't even believe it right now with the dogs. So thank you guys for following along. And
so George,
Jessica, any other questions?
You have about 2 minutes, but you know what I love so much about your techniques, and you know I've watched your work my whole career. Give people just a little minute of how you find inspiration to create these techniques. Because as a colorist myself, I look at this and I'm like, I could do this with any color.
Right.
Any color. So how do you find the inspiration to keep coming up with such great techniques?
My inspiration is really it goes all the way back to one thing, which is fundamentals. And that's understanding the head shape, the balance, the form of the head, and really just looking at my inspiration in colors and combinations can be vast. I could walk into a Lowe's, I can walk into a Lowe's or a Home Depot and go to the paint swatches, or I could look at, like for instance, we were out in Sedona and the Grand Canyon, and I was looking at nature, and I saw beautiful like grays and granite and this clay brown, and it was really what inspired me for tone. So I always look at that, sunsets, anything that has a variation. I want to know how they blend and how those combinations work. And so that for me is my inspiration all the time. Or for me, brown and pink comes back to me from the 70s. You know, I think of those combinations that you see, that bubblegum pink on t-shirts, and then brown was always a staple in the 70s for a color. I don't know why, but growing up in that era, that helped give me a combination. And I love to look at movies and sets and things and see how each frame and each set has a color combination that matches the wardrobe and the hair